Hey guys, long time no see. Welcome to round one of the second mid-season for this week. For this weekend. I'm Regina still, and I'm now here with Jake Muller, one of the Jakes that we'll be having on stream. Because again, for you guys, our round one is Jake Skurchak versus Justin Ramirez.
Yeah, two really great players. Y'all were just talking about them in the pre-show. Two people that I believe both made top 8 in Dallas, which is huge. The first American regional of the format. Clearly know what they're doing in this new format here in 2020. So I'm really excited to see their teams. We might be seeing something similar that Jake ran yesterday, but Justin wasn't here yesterday, so it's going to be interesting to see what he brings.
Yeah, I think yesterday, because we were walking around during Jake's round.
Yeah.
So Jake and I were walking around during other Jake's round.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I was like, that's a Braviary on stream. And that's, I think, like a very unique choice, right? Because Braviary is one of those, I think, Pokemon that it has its roles, but I don't actually ever see people like talking about it in like very like large capacities.
Right. It's something that we all thought was going to be really good at the very beginning of the format, and it kind of fell off a little bit from there, but clearly, still making an impact on Jake's team.
Yeah, especially because it gets Defiant, and so you have like a lot of Pokemon, not as much as before, like running Intimidate, especially because Intimidate isn't as powerful as it has been in previous formats, but you still have like Arcanine, which is a very big deal right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to like see like people using things like that. I mean, obviously my favorite Defiant Pokemon is Milotic, but
of course,
Braviary is like not bad. But there you guys go on your screen. On your left side, Jake has Sylveon, Conkeldurr, Durant, that Braviary, Gothitelle, and Chandelure. So I'm guessing the same team from yesterday. And on your right, Justin Ramirez with a Dusclops, also a Sylveon, Excadrill, Tyranitar, an Arcanine, and Gastrodon.
These are really cool teams. I'm a big fan of both of them. They're both rocking the Sylveon, which is something that I think is a little bit underused in this format so far. So pretty cool to see them both, whipping out the Sylveon this time around. You can tell they both have a Trick Room mode, so Justin with the Dusclops is one of the most reliable Trick Room setters in this format. And Jake with that Gothitelle, usually a pretty good Trick Room setter as well, and the Chandelure as well can also carry Trick Room. The Conkeldurr on Jake's side looks like it'll be pretty strong against the Sandcore on Justin's team. Whereas Durant is going to be faster than everything unless that Excadrill has the Sand Rush boost.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that you're pointing out Sylveon, because I think that was one of the things when we found out about like this new item in Gen 8, you have Throat Spray, which gives you that +2 thing. Because Sylveon fell off so hard after getting that nerf to Pixelate.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say Pixel Plate, and but it's like the mesh of them.
Right.
But seeing two people like round one having like that same choice in terms of an evolution, it's gonna be. I don't know if you ever prepare for like, oh yeah, someone else is gonna have a Sylveon, right?
Right. Well, both of these teams looks like they both have 2 Fairy Resists as well. So they do have some Sylveon counterplay, but also have a couple Sylveon weaks as well. So. Sylveon could be making an impact here. It has some cool support moves here, too, that we might get to see from both of these players.
We're going to see what types of modes they're going to choose for this Game 1 and Round 1. There's so many J's on this screen, but Excadrill and Gastrodon is going to be the lead of choice here for Justin, and Jake actually going to lead with Chandelure and Durant.
Yeah, interesting leads here. The Chandelure is in a decent spot against the Excadrill. Excadrill naturally faster than Chandelure, but Focus Sash is a pretty common item on it, so... if it is carrying that Focus Sash, it'll be able to withstand a ground-type attack from the Excadrill, possibly fire off a fire-type attack to threaten it. But this Durant right now is going to be the fastest thing on the field, and when you have a Durant that is at neutral attack and it is the fastest thing on the field, that is exactly what you want your Durant to be doing. Durant is a really, really terrifying Dynamax Pokemon because it does have that Hustle ability. When you max, you don't have to worry about the lower accuracy from Hustle, and when you combine that with the Life Orb and Durant's high base power moves, it's just terrifying. If you look at Justin's team, he doesn't have a ground resist at all, and Stomping Tantrum into Max Quake is a pretty common move on Durant, so that might be a pretty good option for him here.
And Justin's a little bit scared of that as he's taking out that Excadrill and is going to bring in his Arcanine, so Arcanine's Intimidate is going to at least make sure that Durant is a little less terrifying than it could be after it potentially Dynamaxes on this turn. Chandelure, though, running usually special attack, and there we are, we're going to see Jake go for that Dynamax, and it is most likely going to be that Durant, like you had said, it is one of those Pokemon that once you start Dynamaxing it, it just kind of stomps all over everything else.
Big Ant, here it comes. Yeah, if this is that Max Quake, this could be a pretty big deal for Jake here, catching the start there switch in. It's got a bunch of options here. Something like a Max Flutterby into the Gastrodon is a pretty strong option as well, but we'll have to wait to see. And it is that Max Quake.
And so, like you said, that Max Quake going into an Arcanine spot, ooh, that's gonna hurt a lot for that Arcanine. Even with that Intimidate, that dog came in, tried to intimidate this ant, and was like, all right, I'm out, and gets knocked out. A special defense boost for both Chandelure and Durant, though, so nice because that Gastrodon is still on the field there.
Right.
High special attack there. We also see that Life Orb from Durant as Chandelure goes for the Shadow Ball into that Gastrodon spot. That animation is so slow for this
I know,
generation.
it's weird.
Gastrodon actually using Yawn,
Oh.
so that is a very interesting choice. Not
Yeah.
a move you usually see on Gastrodon.
No, I couldn't have even told you the Gastrodon learns Yawn, if I'm being honest.
Well, we learned that right now.
I know. No, a huge turn for Drake, though. The Intimidate being gone means that the Durant and the Conkeldurr no longer have to worry about getting intimidated. The Ant has been, tired of being oppressed for all these years, and when the dog tried to step on it this time, he said no thank you. So the big knockout for Jake, a bit of a setback for Justin. The Yawn is nice because the Durant will only have one more turn to make use of its Dynamax. But when you're Durant, you really only need 1 or 2 turns in order to take a knockout. I mean, he already got a huge knockout on that first turn, so even if Jake stays in with this Durant, gets another attack off, and then gets put to sleep, that really isn't too much of a setback, especially if he's able to get some more damage off this turn.
Yeah, and because of the fact that Arcanine did get knocked out, like you said, the Conkeldurr in the back doesn't have to worry about getting intimidated, and that's kind of when it really has that use without having to worry about things like that. But Excadrill and Tyranitar are going to be on the field now as that Gastrodon is leaving, and that Tyranitar comes in, brings in the stand with it as well, and this is something that Excadrill loves to have right beside it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is huge for Excadrill because now it will be able to outspeed this Durant. We're seeing the Dynamax from Justin, which means it has to be this Excadrill. It's at neutral attack, it's going to be able to fire off a really strong Max Quake, possibly a Max Rockfall, or even a Steel Spike, but in this case, you would imagine the Quake is coming out. If the Chandelure does have that Focus Sash, it will be able to survive one attack from the Excadrill and fire off a Heat Wave if it is carrying that, though.
Alright, and we've got the Excadrill, yep, like you said, using that Max Quake, so going right into that Chandelure, probably going to reveal a Focus Sash right there. We do see that holding onto it with 1 HP. But the nice thing is, again, with these Max News, that you get that secondary effect, so you will be having that special defense rising, and that's always really important in teams like this. But Tyranitar also getting that, so both our Dynamax Pokemon actually having those Life Orbs. Max Steel Spike from that Durant going into that Tyranitar once it switches.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge play from Jake.
Yikes, yeah, it gets that knockout on the Tyranitar, really nice, and also gets that plus to its defense, which is good against things like Excadrill, which are very high in attack.
Right, that defense is going to be really handy for the Durant because it does have, naturally high defense actually. Not so great special defense, but it did get that Max Quake boost. The Chandelure does go down to the Sandstorm after firing off a Shadow Ball for some little damage into the Excadrill. The Durant does go to sleep as a result of that Yawn from the Gastrodon. But, Jake calling another switch on that turn, he Max Steel Spiked the Gastrodon slot as it switched into a Tyranitar, so another huge play there. Might indicate that, maybe he's not running a Bug-type attack. That might have been a kind of a safer play, especially knowing the Tyranitar could come in. That would have also done the same amount of damage. But, maybe he just wanted the Steel Spike for the defense boost, and then also happened to catch the Tyranitar on the switch. Either way, a very strong play from Jake there.
Yeah, this Tyrant's going to sleep at the end of the turn thanks to that Yawn from earlier, but Sylveon's coming in really nicely against both like the Gastrodon and the Excadrill here, but Durant's like, hey, I'm okay with going to sleep because my partners can probably take care of the rest of this for me.
Sylveon coming in, isn't really in a great spot here. This Excadrill is threatening a Max Steel Spike into the Sylveon, which would surely take it out in one hit. So a little interesting to see Jake bringing the Sylveon here. That might indicate that he doesn't really have a great option against this Excadrill left in the back.
He's got to hope for that turn 1 wake up then with that Durant, which we've seen that sort of happen before.
Right.
But Sylveon goes for the Protect on this turn, so hopefully not going to take as much damage from, like you said, a potential Max Steel Spike. And there it is right there from the Excadrill going into that Sylveon spot. So still a lot of damage even behind that Protect. It did not get the Max Steel Spike boost from Durant from that turn earlier. So Sylveon is not going to like that at all, but a defense rise for both Excadrill and for Gastrodon here. Durant asleep on this turn. That is its necessary sleep turn for right now, as Gastrodon uses Recover, so going to get back all the health that it had lost from that turn that it was here. So it's going to be a little bit tougher to take out as Sylveon gets hit by the Sandstorm. Yeah,
really strong turn from Justin there. He kind of lost some momentum, taking those 2 knockouts from the Durant's max moves. But once he was able to put the Durant to sleep and get himself into more of a safer position, that Recover was really smart. Knowing that the Durant had to be asleep, and if Sylveon didn't protect, it would be knocked out. That Steel Spike into Sylveon boosting defense is big for Justin too, because now he doesn't really have to fear that Durant anymore.
Ooh, so no attempt at a double protect here from the Sylveon, as it does get taken out by that Max Steel Spike from the Excadrill. Gets another defense boost to both the Gastrodon and the Excadrill. So Durant, if it even wakes up, is going to have a harder time getting that damage out into both of those Pokemon. It's still asleep on this turn, so Jake is going to get a little worried about this as Gastrodon uses Earth Power into that only Pokemon on Jake's side and does some okay damage, but the important thing is for Justin at least that Durant is still asleep.
Yeah, no, that was really nice for Justin. If the Durant was able to wake up, it probably would not have been able to take a knock on either Pokemon because it is a -1 from that Arcanine at the very beginning, but not having to take damage at all is way better than, taking a little bit of damage. We do see Jake, lose that Sylveon, and I think it was smart bringing the Sylveon in when he did, because now this Conkeldurr doesn't have to face down to max Excadrill. The Excadrill on Justin's side is now just normal Excadrill and not the very large one with very powerful attacks. So this Conkeldurr is going to be really important. I think that's his main win con here. This Excadrill is still faster than Durant, and it probably will be able to take it out through the defense boost from Steel Spike just because it is so low on health.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where Jake was like, hey, Sylveon has to be sacrificed here because I need Conkeldurr to come in properly. And we see Justin using Protect for that extra drill because of that Conkeldurr on here. But Conkeldurr also going for the Protect, so just going to try to bait that out. And hopefully, yeah, there we go, that Durant waking up, going for the Stomping Tantrum, and goes into that protected Excadrill spot. But now we have Gastrodon going for Earth Power and actually targets down the Durant and not the Conkeldurr.
Another good play from Justin there, protecting the Excadrill, knowing that that's kind of the main target for Jake. That is the main thing that could win this game for Justin. The Durant waking up is nice, but unfortunately whiffs into that protecting Excadrill, and the Earth Power is able to take out the Durant. You see that Earth Power did, about half, even through a special defense boost from Max Quake. So it kind of goes to show you just how weak Durant is on the special defense side. But Conkeldurr is able to get that Flame Orb boost, which means it is carrying that Guts ability. And so even though this Excadrill does have 2 defense boosts from those max Steel Spikes, it might be able to...
Ooh, that Mach Punch does not knock out that Excadrill. As Excadrill goes for the Iron Head into Conkeldurr, does a lot of damage into it, gets it down to half, but follow-up from Gastrodon with Earth Power into Conkeldurr should... actually just puts it down at 14, so...
Oh, the burn will be enough, though. Yeah.
That was a kind of rough turnaround for Jake there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He probably went for a Mach Punch hoping it KO'd. If he carries Drain Punch, at least, we don't know for sure that he is carrying Drain Punch, but if he was, it may have been a bit smarter to, take that Iron Head, hope you don't get flinched, and then Drain Punch the Excadrill for the KO, and that would leave you at a much higher health to face down this Gastrodon. And if you're playing against this Gastrodon, the damage from Guts boosted Drain Punch is actually pretty strong, and you might be able to recover enough through Drain Punch to outlast this Gastrodon. So, possibly not wanting to deal with a flinch, possibly just, misestimating or underestimating the damage output through those 2 defense boosts. But Justin will take this game 1 after kind of a shaky start, but a very, very well-played endgame.
Yeah, I think those turns that really matter for him was being able to bring in that Tyranitar alongside that Excadrill.
Right.
And then again, it just shows you the power of max moves and those secondary effects, having the defense boost to make sure that, Durant isn't able to, have as much of a higher attack. But I think what helped him win that was that Gastrodon with Yawn.
Oh, that was huge.
Wild.
No, yeah, only giving the Durant 2 turns of Dynamax instead of 3 was really big for Justin. That was a really important way to kind of slow down the Durant, make sure it wasn't able to fire off another max move. If it did get one more max move off, it likely would have taken... either another KO or put a lot of damage into the Gastrodon, which would have not been able to face down the Conkeldurr in the very end. The Steel Spike boost coming in very handy for the Excadrill too, because we thought it was able to take that Mach Punch at the very end. So very well played game by Justin. Knowing which boost he needed from that Steel Spike, from the Quake, to be able to have a safer end game. That kind of just goes to show you just how good those defense boosting max moves are. Max Steel Spike boosting defense, Max Quake boosting special defense. Those are 2 of the max moves you're going to see some of the most. I think those 2 in Max Airstream are probably the 3 kind of top tier max moves, just because they boost some really important stats and they are firing off at full power.
Yeah, especially because there's no other way usually to do that without sacrificing for a status move instead.
Right.
And the ability to get the damage and the boost at the same time has just been so nice, I think, for players to use overall, and kind of seeing it in this way. And I think this is one of those generations where status afflictions are way more prominent than usual, right?
Yeah.
You've got the Yawns everywhere, but also Conkeldurr being one of those Pokemon so prominent with Guts and Flame Orb has just been kind of really interesting to see, because I came from a meta where that never was a thing.
Right, even the move Will-O-Wisp is making a return. That was really big back in 6th generation. You think about 2014, 2015, even parts of 2016. Yeah, but once we got into 2017, we had those terrains, specifically Tapu Fini, almost made Burns and Will-O-Wisp a little bit obsolete, but they are making a comeback now for sure.
And Justin switching it up with Dusclops and Excadrill, and Jake also switching it up with Durant and Gothitelle, so that Shadow Tag gonna make sure that at least that Excadrill can't switch out.
Right.
But Dusclops is I can leave whenever I want.
This is a pretty good spot for Durant. Yeah, the Excadrill, like you said, cannot switch out. If it is carrying Protect, it might be able to take 1 attack through Protect, although if something like a Helping Hand Max Quake could probably still do a pretty big chunk through Protect. Gothitelle is a pretty strong partner for Durant because it does have access to Fake Out and Helping Hand, so you can essentially buy Durant a free turn and then also start boosting its really powerful attacks. if the Dusclops does switch out, Arcanine might be a likely replacement just for that Intimidate. Durant usually doesn't carry something that would be super effective against Dusclops. So Dusclops actually really not in a bad spot here. If it is able to tank, even a Helping Hand boosted max move, thanks to that Eviolite and its really strong defenses, setting up a Trick Room here might be pretty helpful just to make sure that Durant isn't going to fire off attacks first.
Yeah, and Durant actually going for a Protect here as Excadrill goes for Iron Head into Gothitelle, gets it down to about half HP, and Will-O-Wisp from Dusclops is not going to go into that Durant because of that Protect, but Gothitelle is now free to set up that Trick Room, and Jake is feeling pretty about that.
Well, I don't know, because the Durant is now going to be the slowest thing on the field. Possibly he may have been trying to catch Justin going for a Trick Room of his own and reversing it, but I'm not sure if that was kind of the smartest play, just because the Durant, even if you don't, if you do catch the reverse Trick Room, then what happens? You're just in the same exact spot as before, but now you possibly took some damage with the Gothitelle, so bit of an interesting play from Jake, possibly, showing that he has that Conkeldurr in the back just because Conkeldurr is so strong against Justin's team, specifically in that Trick Room.
Oh, and no switch outs actually, as Justin is going to go for the Dynamax, so Excadrill is like, hey, you can keep me in here all you like, but I'm just going to Dynamax, and it's going to hurt you more in the end. So it's going to be, I think, a really rough turn for Jake if he doesn't figure out some way to at least save that Durant or get himself out of this.
Yeah. Excadrill is going to, boost its stats with that max, with the Dynamax. Looks like we're going to see a mirror from Jake here, too. So almost definitely this Durant. I'm not sure why you'd ever Dynamax a Gothitelle, especially in this position. Yeah, exactly. Now, the Durant coming out here, it's very likely we'll be taking a burn from this Dusclops just because burn is so strong against such a strong physical attacker like Durant. But boosting the Durant here means that it will be, a little bit bulkier, possibly able to take something like a Max Quake from this Excadrill.
All right, and Gothitelle going for the Helping Hand, though. You'd mentioned that previous turn, but now hopefully, even if it does get burned, Will-O-Wisp. So Nightshade actually instead into that Durant. So Durant's going to be free to potentially attack as Max Steel Spike from Excadrill goes into that Durant spot. Gets some more damage onto there, but raises that defense onto both Excadrill and to Dusclops. And that's going to be great for Justin, because of the fact that now this Durant has that Helping Hand boost as well for that Max Quake.
I don't know if it's going to be enough though. This Max Quake is going to be really strong, and even through the +1 defense, it's able to score a big knockout. Really big turn for Jake there, predicting either the non-Will-O-Wisp or just kind of an overextension from Justin there. Getting it correctly, possibly trying to call a Durant switch. The Durant was really not in a great position, Justin already revealed Will-O-Wisp. It was the slowest thing on the field given the Trick Room, and so Jake kind of calling Justin out there for trying to make a little bit of a big read and not really coming through. So great play from Jake, and this time it's Justin who's going to be only making one turn. Making use of one turn of his Dynamax instead of Jake this time around. And
Arcanine takes the place of his fallen comrade, has that Intimidate go into that Durant and that Gothitelle, so it's going to be a little rough still, I think, for Justin, but Jake was like, hey, I clicked Trick Room, but now I'm just going to make use of it for myself, even though, Durant is trying to be really fast here.
Yeah, kind of like an interesting, turn of events there, because, the Trick Room setup from Jake, really not, it didn't seem like it made a lot of sense, but he essentially baited Justin into making a big play and called him out for it. So well done on his end.
Yeah, all right. Gothitelle leaving the field as Conkeldurr takes its place, and Durant going for that Protect so it doesn't take damage from the Flare Blitz from Arcanine. And Dusclops is actually reversing the Trick Room here, so I think that's what Jake had been expecting, like you said, in that beginning turn. But Conkeldurr is coming in, gets the burn from the Flame Orb as well, so now we have kind of two high attacking Pokemon on Jake's side.
No, that's a really good play from Jake there. If you're Justin, you're worried about Jake reversing the Trick Room of his own. It's in that case, he did go for Max Guard on Durant, and he could have potentially gone for Trick Room with his Gothitelle in order to reverse the Trick Room and keep Durant on the field outside of Trick Room. But Justin, reading that, tries to go for Trick Room of his own to reverse the reversal and keep Trick Room up, but Jake calls that out. It's like
a reverse of that first turn,
exactly.
But Arcanine protecting itself as Dusclops takes a...
that did literally nothing.
Yeah, that Max Steel Spike as the defense rises for both Durant and for Conkeldurr here. Still takes that damage from the Life Orb, but close combat going into that protected Arcanine spot. Dusclops is able to connect Will-O-Wisp on this turn, but I think at this point Jake is kind of well, I can at least get some damage now with Conkeldurr on the field, and Durant sure is going to be ending its Dynamax turns, but it's done some damage and gotten those boosts.
Yeah, the Steel Spike there, a good play. Boosting the defense of the Conkeldurr. We've seen the Arcanine go for Flare Blitz already. Some of them opt for a special fire type move instead, like Flamethrower or Heat Wave. But seeing the Flare Blitz, he boosts the defense of the Conkeldurr, so it's able to take that Flare Blitz a little bit better. The Dusclops is just so bulky, took almost nothing from that max steel spike.
Alright, and Durant using Rock Slide, the Dusclops does avoid it, and it hits into Arcanine and doesn't do like any damage at all thanks to that burn. Still also loses that HP from Life Orb, and Arcanine is able to connect with that Flare Blitz. And again, that was a defense booster, just so nice for that Conkeldurr. It's taking it very nicely as it goes for the close combat into Arcanine, picks up the knockout on there. And is going to leave this Dusclops and its partner as like the only Pokemon here. The special defense falling, and the defense falling is okay because of those previous boosts, but Dusclops is taking this opportunity now to set up Trick Room again, because now you don't have to worry about that Gothitelle reversing it.
The close combat also explains the lack of a Drain Punch play at the end of Game 1. You know, you can't Drain Punch if you don't have Drain Punch, so the close combat into the Excadrill at the end of Game 1, certainly would have put it in range to be knocked out by an Earth Power at -1 special defense. So explaining that, but a Guts boosted close combat. Close combat's a new tool that Conkeldurr got at the beginning of this generation. So close combat boosted by Guts, incredibly strong, easily able to finish off that Arcanine after the Rock Slide chip damage. Conkeldurr's still going to be the fastest thing on the field. Most likely it is naturally slower than Sylveon. Well, it's not slower than Dusclops, but it will be attacking before the Sylveon, which means it will be able to get close combat off before the Sylveon can knock it out with a Hyper Voice.
But Conkeldurr takes this turn to protect as Durant takes a Nightshade from Dusclops and is knocked out due to it. Sylveon using Hyper Voice does not connect with the Conkeldurr thanks to that protect, and the Conkeldurr just going to take that burn damage at the end of this turn. So Jake at least able to either bring in like the Gothitelle or maybe his own Sylveon.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen Jake's 4th Pokemon yet, so that might be really helpful for him at the end of this game. If it is something like the Chandelure again, Chandelure coming in handy because it is resistant to those Hyper Voices. I'm very curious to see how much a close combat would do to the Sylveon, just because the Conkeldurr with a Guts boost is incredibly strong, and Sylveon not really known to have the highest defense, especially if this Dusclops doesn't have another attacking move other than Nightshade. It certainly won't be able to knock out this Conkeldurr through, or with the Nightshade, or rather before it can fire off a close combat.
Alright, Conkeldurr is actually going to leave the field, and Jake's going to show us his final Pokemon. It's actually the Braviary. So that is going to be an interesting choice against these last two. Sylveon actually using Protect on this turn, so probably didn't want to risk taking those close combat. Gothitelle going for Fake Out into that Sylveon spot, so we might actually see like that Nightshade going into that Braviary, but thanks to that Ghost typing does not affect Braviary for that normal type. So Braviary coming in really nicely here, really pretty, just not taking any damage in at all. Yeah,
that's a handy switch because Braviary is immune to that Nightshade thanks to the normal typing. It is not immune to burns, though, which is somewhat unfortunate for the Braviary because this Dusclops will be packing Will-O-Wisp, likely sending it that way. The Gothitelle showing Fake Out into the Sylveon, that would have been a really great way to prevent a Hyper Voice that turn had Justin not protected. But now Justin's still in a kind of a decent spot here because the Sylveon is able to fire off a Hyper Voice without really fearing a big knockout from either Pokemon. Sylveon, not the most bulky on the defensive side, but bulky enough to take something like a Brave Bird from the Braviary, especially if the Dusclops is able to burn it before it attacks.
Yeah, so this is going to be an important turn for, I think, both of them, actually, as Dusclops goes for the Helping Hand. Oh, that is an interesting choice there. Yeah. The Helping Hand is going to help boost that Hyper Voice even more. Gothitelle also revealing that Helping Hand, so these partners helping out the Pokemon next to them, and it's just a matter of how much damage they can do. Sylveon using Hyper Voice is going to connect with both of them, does significant amounts of damage to them, but doesn't get the knockout.
Is that a Throat Spray? There it is.
Yeah, that Throat Spray raising the special attack of that Sylveon for that next turn, but Braviary boosted by the Helping Hand and Brave Bird going into that Sylveon and is not enough to pick up that knockout. So thankfully, though, the recoil also didn't knock out that Braviary, and at least that Conkeldurr is safe from having to take in damage. But those Helping Hands were great, just not enough to pick out knockouts that they both needed. Yeah, and the Braviary surviving that Brave Bird recoil is really big, too, because now this is the last turn of Trick Room, and it can easily protect itself from some damage, as it is doing now. Yeah, Braviary is like, hey, I'm just going to wait for this to end. Dusclops is using Nightshade, it's just going to go into that Gothitelle. So is like, hey, might as well just pick up the knockout on you. You can't use Helping Hand anymore later and don't have to worry about you. Sylveon using Hyper Voice. It is boosted by that +1 thanks to the Throat Spray, but the Trick Room is ended thanks to that last protect. I wish Sylveon would share its Throat Spray. I could really use some right now. Oh, it's been a weekend. No, the Conkeldurr now comes in here, and it is still it's a pretty decent health. It won't be knocked out by a Nightshade or two because it will do that flat 50 damage. And the Mach Punch will be able to pick off the Sylveon here. So the Brave Bird, not the Brave Bird, Jake is still in a pretty good spot here. This Dusclops, it's shown so many moves that it's very likely not carrying Pain Split. Any damage that you do into it will stick, which means that if Jake can finish off the Sylveon, he should likely have enough tools to outlast this Dusclops, especially, well, I guess that kind of depends on Conkeldurr having something other than a fighting type attack to hit the Dusclops, because Braviary will go down to one more Brave Bird recoil for sure. But as long as Sylveon, isn't hyper voicing, I think Jake does have a way out of this game, and it relies on this Conkeldurr. This is one of those tense moments where you're like, do I have enough with this Conkeldurr to take down this Dusclops? And it's like, that's a scenario that only you really know the answer to.
Yeah.
But Sylveon actually revealing quick attack, and it's going to pick up that knockout on Braviary before it can go for anything like that Brave Bird. So Justin's like, I'm going to take this out of the equation. Don't want to deal with that. Mach Punch from his Conkeldurr going into Justin. Sylveon picks up the knockout, but not before Sylveon got that really more knockout with the Braviary, because like you said, if Conkeldurr doesn't have a move to touch Dusclops, there's nothing Jake can do.
Right. Now, Conkeldurr showing that it does have enough to take one more Nightshade, but Nightshade plus one more Tech of Burn damage will be enough to finish it off. So unless Conkeldurr can knock out Dusclops from this range, which, you know, we know that Conkeldurr's strong, but Dusclops is bulkier, so
that is
very
a
likely
thunder
not.
punch.
Yeah.
So he does have something to hit it. It's not even close, but
is that even like hitting it? That did almost nothing.
Did that even move?
I
Is
know.
the question. Yeah, and that burn damage and the Nightshade is enough to pick up the knockout here on Conkeldurr, giving round 1 to Justin Ramirez.
Yeah, really well
that was
played from
crazy fun.
Justin there, especially after that kind of not bad, but not a great start to game 1. You know, taking those 2 knockouts from that Max Durant. But, you know, playing the very end of game 1 extremely well, managing his resources incredibly well in game 1, and kind of, you know, powering through kind of a tumultuous game 2. There was a lot of up and down in that game. You know, looked for a little bit that Jake might have the edge there, but revealing that quick attack Sylveon to score the KO there, even before the Mach Punch.
Yeah, I think what's really fun about game 2 was less about like attacking moves and being like, okay, how do I get into my opponent's head about Trick Room setup?
that was
like
huge,
that was insane, because it's like, okay, well, he's gonna set up Trick Room and then I'm gonna like reverse it. But then that didn't happen. It was 2 different turns where they were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna reverse the Trick Room, and you just end up helping your opponent in some way.
I think they both Trick Roomed, thinking the other would Trick Room once. Yeah,
and it was interesting, I think, is that even with like, so like Jake had set up Trick Room on accident trying to reverse it, but it still helped him out in the end.
A little bit, yeah.
But then the opposite happened for Justin as well.
Right.
Like, he like was trying to like set up Trick Room for himself and ended up reversing it for Jake, but Justin ended up capitulating on that more than
I can feel my eyes spinning right now.
Yeah,
this is so much to follow.
It's like so much.
It's like the Zach Galifianakis with the science gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
clearly they know what they're doing, and we're just trying to follow along here.
we're only here to explain it.
Right.
But we will be having Justin back here for an interview, so don't go anywhere, guys.
Hey trainers, and welcome into the interview lounge here in Iselin, New Jersey at our second Midseason Showdown of the weekend. My name is Brendan Lewis, and I'm joined by the winner of round one, Justin Ramirez. Justin, it was a pretty good set overall for you. You took a two-game win. How do you feel after that?
Relieved, because when I saw his team in preview, I was shook. I've never seen a team built like that. Like, it was weird. Like, I'm used to Shandy, Durant, but like not with the Gothitelle Braviary stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff pushing away Arcanine, so.
Right, that was one of the first things I wanted to ask you. Is that is a team archetype that you're at least somewhat familiar with, having built your own sort of variants of the Durant Gothitelle stuff for that Rose Tower tournament. So what was it like going up against something that you had, like you said, at least some degree of familiarity with, but a little different in some of the other Pokemon that Jake selected?
It was still super threatening. Like, I didn't know what the Shandy was. Game one, I was expecting Energy Ball onto my Gastrodon. Like, when I saw it was Shadow Ball, I was like, all right, thank God. I don't remember the other two Mons on his team. Oh, he had Conk. Yeah, the Conk was super rough. Like, just like having the Gothitelle Trap, even though I had a Ghost type, like, was still super rough for me. I knew it was going to be really, like, just trading KOs, like, every turn. That's what it ended up being, so.
What are, like, some of the similarities and differences between that and the variant that you ran?
I think his is more aggressive, like with the Chandelier and Braviary. Mine was more like meant to be played with Yon Sylveon, kind of like pinning things down.
Gotcha.
Putting like things like Arcanine to sleep unexpectedly. And his team was just very like hit hard, hit quick. I don't know what the Chandelier item was. I think it was Sash. But yeah, that thing like just leading it straight up into my team was pretty rough, because it made me think twice about attacking with Drill.
Right, okay.
And yeah, obviously Durant covering the T-Tar couldn't check the Chandelier properly. It was tough.
And speaking of Yon, you had Yon teched onto a different Pokemon on your team today, which was Gastrodon. Can you talk a little bit about that tech?
Yeah, I saw Alexandra.
Yeah, I was just reading that yesterday. I was wondering if,
at Bochum, and I know me and Justin Karras, actually, we talked about it early in the format, that we want to use it. Gastrodon's like a favorite Pokemon of ours. So I tacked it on ladder a couple of days ago. It's been working pretty good, so I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, and it definitely paid off for you in that one game.
Yeah.
So you're in a pretty good position. I feel like we're always happy to take a win, especially over a good player, with Jake being somebody who you can expect to boost your resistance. Are you feeling pretty good about the rest of the tournament after how round one went?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little relief. Pulling Skurch round one, top 8 at Dallas, great player. It was pretty
yeah, you
scary,
both had top 8 at Dallas. So are you like making a run at a travel award or anything? Do you have enough CP to be in that range?
Not at a travel award. I'm going for the invite. I'm going for bricks this year. I'm not really too worried about CP.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good goal. All right, so we're going to wrap it up real quick. Anything you want to say to our audience before we go here?
Just shout out Case, shout out to PB, and thanks for all the support on Twitter for the team report and everything. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming by, and congratulations on your round one win. We're going to take a short break and be back to you with the analyst desk back here in this very same lounge in just a few seconds, so stay tuned.